The man with no face. They told us the world ended in fire. They still tell the story the same way. That the earth burned. That sometime before the year 2045.
What the hell is happening? Run! Get to the shelter now! We're not safe here, keep moving!
No, again.
The sky split open and fire rained down. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled. Nations vanished in a single blinding breath of light. The old maps became lies overnight. Humanity did not win the war, it endured it, crawling into the cracks of the world while the surface became a grave of fused stone and rusted monuments. They would later say the world ended in fire. They were wrong. The world reset. Just as it had before. Long before the burning, before satellites and circuits, there had been other worlds buried beneath history's silence. Empires erased without war. Cities of impossible scale labeled myths. Tartaria. A civilization of gears, towers, free energy, and harmonic machines, wiped clean, its bones repurposed, its memory renamed legend. Each time humanity rose too high, the cycle answered. This time, the fire only stripped the illusion away.
We made it. But the city's dead. Not yet. Look, there's movement.
It's not human.
Stay close.
We made it out. But what's left? The sky's still burning, but the machines are waking up. They said the apostles were gone. But now we're being watched. Run. Now.
When the ash settled, survivors emerged into a scarred planet where the old future was dead. No clean power grids. No pristine skies. Only scavenged knowledge and half-remembered truths. From the wreckage of the previous age, and the buried tech of ages before, it began again. Steam hissed where silicon failed. Brass replaced chrome. Pressure, pistons, and clockwork mines filled the void left by dead networks. They rebuilt not upward, but inward, cities nested inside old Tartarian shells, hidden beneath cathedrals of iron and smoke. Airships drifted where planes once ruled. Mechanical sentries guarded resource vaults. Gears turned because gears could be trusted. Steam didn't lie. Steam didn't watch you. The elites known as the apostles seized what remained, energy wells, clean water, the last working machines, crowning themselves stewards of survival while leaving the masses to defend themselves in the wastelands. Below and between, a new world formed, steampunk by necessity, mythic by inheritance. And walking between all of it, between the buried past and the manufactured future, was the man with no face. Some said he remembered the world before the fire. Others said he remembered the worlds before that. Either way, he knew the truth. The war never ends. The roads move. And every new world is built on the ruins of the last. He does wear a mask. Not to hide his face, but to remind the world that identity is not authority. The man with no face walks among the hands dressed like them, his coat stained with grain dust, sap, and metal filings. The mask is smooth, pale, unmarked, no eyes, no mouth, because the story is not about him. It is about them. When he speaks, his voice is steady, human, worn by labor and loss. The people say he has been there since the first tunnels were dug after the fire. They say he stood in the fields when ash still fell like snow, helping hands coax grain and corn from poisoned soil. They say he taught them how to turn dead forests into steam-treated lumber, how to pull clean metals from scorched rock, how to work without becoming owned by the work. Whether these stories are all true does not matter. What matters is that they are believed. Before the hands, the age of iron and empty numbers. Before the hands reshaped the world, there was an age that called itself advanced, but it was built on nothing that could be touched. The old world fought its wars with tanks that crossed continents like crawling cities, with skies choked by bombers, and seas ruled by steel hulls bristling with guns. Nations measured power in tonnage, barrel length, and kill ratios. Victory was not survival, it was domination. The people were not citizens, they were fuel. A monetary system governed everything, yet it produced nothing of its own. Value was declared, printed, digitized, inflated, numbers stacked on numbers, promises stacked on debt. Entire empires rested on ledgers that had no grain, no steel, no water behind them. The further the numbers grew from reality, the more violence was required to protect the illusion. To keep this system alive, the world fed itself into war. Men were trained to die inside machines. Women were moved through factories like replaceable parts. Children learned history as propaganda and geography as targeting data. The land itself was treated as expendable, mined, burned, poisoned, because tomorrow was always someone else's problem. The people were cattle. They were herded by borders, taxed by systems they did not understand, and sacrificed in conflicts whose causes dissolved the moment the shooting stopped. When resources ran thin, wars were invented. When wars ended, markets collapsed. And when markets collapsed, the same people who had been promised progress were blamed for not working hard enough. This cycle repeated until the machines outgrew the system meant to control them. The collapse that was not fire, but exposure. Contrary to the legends, the world did not end in a single blaze. There were wars, many of them, but what truly ended the old age was exposure. Supply chains snapped. Currencies failed overnight. Armies discovered that tanks cannot run on confidence, and bombs do not fly on credit. Steel rusted where it stood. Cities starved faster than battlefields. Governments issued orders no one could enforce. And in the aftermath of global conflict, after the echo of World War I and II had long mutated into endless proxy wars and mechanized stalemates, the truth became unavoidable. You cannot eat money. You cannot drink ideology. You cannot repair a machine with promises. As the old structures collapsed, something unexpected happened, not unity, but migration. Not across borders, but across ways of living. The slow migration to the new order. The survivors did not rebuild the world as it was. They abandoned it. The first to be protected were not generals or bankers, but those who could still produce something real. Communities formed around hands that could shape steel, grow grain, cut wood, purify water, and assemble the small but vital electronics and gears needed to keep post-war machines alive. This was not charity. It was survival logic. In the New World, those who supplied real resources became untouchable, not by law, but by necessity. You could kill a ruler and replace him. You could not kill a millwright, a water keeper, or a gearsmith without collapsing your own future. Slowly, a new class system emerged, not one of bloodlines or titles, but of function. Steel workers were guarded, because steel meant tools, shelter, and defense. Grain growers were protected, because hunger ends civilizations faster than bombs. Woodcutters were valued, because warmth and construction mattered more than monuments. Water keepers became sacred, because clean water decided who lived past the next season. The makers of minor electronics and gears, small, precise, overlooked, kept the old machines breathing just enough to matter. For the first time in generations, the people who fed the world were not disposable. This shift did not happen overnight. Many still tried to resurrect the old monetary myths. Some hoarded gold. Others clung to flags that no longer had armies behind them. But those systems failed wherever they resurfaced, because they demanded obedience without offering protection. The new order reversed that equation. Protection was given first, to those whose hands sustained life. Power followed function, not the other way around. Violence still existed, but it was restrained, purposeful, and directed outward, not inward. The people were no longer cattle. They became custodians. And it is from this world, scarred by mechanized war, stripped of illusions, and rebuilt around labor that matters, that the legend of the hands truly begins. The hands and the living world. The hands are not a class. They are a covenant, formed after the world learned the cost of treating labor as expendable and people as fuel for systems that produced nothing real. The covenant does not elevate the hands above others, nor does it place them beneath authority. It binds everyone to them. Through this vow, the world acknowledges that survival itself is a shared responsibility, and that those who sustain life must never again be hidden, exploited, or discarded. The hands produce what the world requires to breathe. Grain becomes bread. Corn becomes fuel and feed. Wood becomes shelter, heat, and pressure cores. Metals become tools, rails, engines, and the machines that still echo with the memory of old wars. Their labor is not buried beneath cities of privilege or obscured by walls of power. It is visible and central, because survival must never again be invisible. Fields remain open, mills stand at the heart of settlements, forests are worked and marked, and foundries burn where all can see them. To witness the hands at work is to witness the world continuing. They are not slaves. They are not owned. They are not commanded. The covenant recognizes them as commodities only in the oldest sense of the word, held in common, essential to all, and protected by all. Their value is not obedience but necessity. No wealth, title, or banner grants authority over a hand, and no system is permitted to extract from them without giving protection in return. Where the old world demanded labor and offered scarcity, the covenant demands protection and ensures sustenance. Steam guardians stand watch wherever the hands labor, not as overseers but as shields. These walking machines of riveted iron and hissing valves are powered by pressure, fuel, and unbroken directive. Their presence is constant and unmistakable. Soldiers walk alongside them, not as enforcers but as sworn defenders whose duty is not to compel work, but to ensure that work is never interrupted by hunger, theft, or violence. The order they carry is older than any surviving nation: no hand shall be taken, no harvest shall be stolen, and no family shall be starved for another's excess. A hand under guard is not imprisoned, they are insured. Beyond the farms, mills, forests, and foundries move the apostolic proctors, often called apostles by the people, though none claim the title. They do not rule territories and do not linger where stability has been secured. Each represents a foundational contribution to the covenant, and they intervene only where resources are threatened, hoarded, or corrupted. Their conflicts are not wars of domination but measured skirmishes meant to reclaim continuity: rail lines reopened, water sources secured, forests defended, mines restored. They spill blood only to prevent famine, collapse, or exploitation, and once an area is stabilized and its hands protected, they move on. This is the standard the masked witness speaks of wherever he goes. He does not recruit, command, or promise power. He reminds the people of what the world once was and why it cannot be allowed to return. He speaks of an age when labor was mistaken for weakness and freedom was sold without bread to sustain it. Wherever his words take hold, the hands stand taller, the guardians realign, and settlements choose the covenant over isolation. The mask offers no origin and no prophecy, only a living truth that has already been paid for in blood and famine. The people are no longer cattle. They are no longer expendable. They are kept, not owned, defended rather than consumed. And in this guarded balance, of labor made visible, protection made sacred, and power restrained by necessity, the world, for the first time since the age of tanks and empty money, continues to breathe. There are entire zones on the old maps marked with a simple symbol: a blank face etched into steel. These are places where inequality once ruled, and no longer does. The stories say the man with no face never led the uprising. He only stood among the people until they realized their own weight. When the tipping point came, he stepped back, and the hands moved forward as one body: farmers, metalworkers, mill families, machine tenders. No crowns were taken. No thrones were claimed. Only a new standard was set. A living measured by work shared, families protected, and excess denied. When the dust settled, the masked witness was gone. The one who left no face, and gave the world its own. He is called the man with no face, not because he lacks one, but because no single image of him survives. In every zone he enters, witnesses disagree. Some remember a mask of iron, others cloth, others only shadow and breath behind glass lenses. What remains consistent is not how he looks, but what follows him: disruption without spectacle, collapse without chaos, and a people who rise not as mobs, but as citizens reclaiming what was always theirs. The zones did not fall to open war. They fell to guerrilla warfare, pressure applied beneath the surface, systems unraveled from within. Supply lines failed without explosions. Ledgers emptied without theft. Surveillance grids turned blind at critical hours. Sabotage moved like a rumor, precise and patient, never striking the hands, never starving the people, only severing the structures that fed on them. By the time zone authorities realized they were under attack, they found they no longer controlled food, water, fuel, or labor, and without those, authority dissolved. What followed was not an uprising, but a return. The people did not beg for freedom, they exercised it. Councils reformed. Work was reclaimed. Protection shifted from enforcing obedience to defending contribution. Equal citizenship was not granted by decree, it was recognized as fact. The man with no face did not rule these moments. He stood apart, watching as communities remembered how to govern themselves once fear was removed. When a zone stabilized, he did not stay. He never stayed. Once the hands were secured, the guardians aligned, and the apostolic proctors withdrew, the man with no face moved on. It is believed there are 36 zones worldwide, relics of the old partitioned order. 6 have been freed. That number is never announced publicly, yet everyone seems to know it. Hope travels faster than armies. The message spreads through underground messengers, rail workers, water keepers, mill runners, signal techs who speak in maintenance codes and routing paths. No banners are raised. No anthems are sung. Cities begin to change quietly, copying what worked elsewhere, aligning themselves before the man with no face ever arrives. Some zones free themselves before he is even seen. Others fail and wait, learning patience. As more cities awaken, the world begins to transform, not backward into nostalgia, but forward into memory restored. Old technologies are recovered, not to dominate, but to serve. Boards of certification replace empty credentials. Knowledge is verified through function, not title. Machines return, cleaner and smaller, guided by necessity instead of profit. The people do not reject the old world entirely, they reclaim what once worked, and discard what enslaved them. In time, the man with no face becomes less visible, not because he is gone, but because he is no longer needed everywhere. His work was never to be remembered as conquest, but as ignition. The true victory is not his path between zones, but the spaces he leaves behind, places where people think freely because they live freely, where labor is honored, protection is mutual, and power answers to survival. No monument is raised to him. None would make sense. The world he helped free does not need a face to follow anymore. Maybe the man with no face was not a man, but a programmed pre-world synthetic being to help mold back humanity after the fall of the old world. And that, at last, is how it knows the new world is free.